Here to co-induct Jann Wenner into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Ahmet Ertegun.
I've known Jann Wenner for many long, wonderful years. Since those very early days when he and Jane Wenner printed the first copies of Rolling Stone on newsprint. Jann's mentor in those days was my old friend, the great jazz critic Ralph Gleason, who was the first one of his ilk to take a serious interest in the newly emerging form of music known as rock and roll. Ralph Gleason, my brother Nesoi, John Hammond, Milt Gabler, and Jerry Wexler, all Hall of Famers, were old school jazz lovers and collectors. But very early in the game, Jann, more than any of them, realized the importance of the oncoming surge of rock music. He recognized it not only simply as an outgrowth of the blues, but also as a harbinger of a new set of mores and a new philosophy of life. More than anyone else, he first identified the power of rock as a politically and socially evocative form of music that would change our world. His statements and those of the writers in his magazine espoused a revolution that was not only musical, but cultural. Of course, he played a pivotal role in the explosive San Francisco scene of the 60s, but more importantly, he embodies what we call fearless journalism, then and now. So it is with great joy that we welcome Jann Wenner into his well-deserved place among the pioneers of rock and roll. And to further my comments, I present to you a great pioneer of rock and roll, Sir Mick Jagger.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed. He put it very, very well there, all about Jann. And, you know, when I was first asked to come up and induct Jann into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, my response was immediate. Why? But, you know, they wouldn't take no for an answer, so here I am. And I guess at some point, most of the artists in this room have had great reviews in Rolling Stone magazine for their records, and they've sometimes had bad reviews in Rolling Stones for their records. And if you had a bad review, you know, that can really affect your sales. But, you know, if you get a scandalous story in Us magazine, that could ruin your life. I like to think that Jann has entered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because, you know, as Ahmed said, he represents people that love music. And Jann himself is a passionate fan of music. Because when we first came to America, things were very different. There was magazines called 16, and what were they? Tiger Beat was another one. And they would ask you really deep questions like, do you like blondes or brunettes? Do you like Italian food or Chinese food? What kind of socks do you like? And you also, Keith, do you remember, you used to get to pose with sheepdogs at airports for them? You know, this is the kind of stuff we used to do. But it was great. But this innocent triviality was swept away when in 1967 Rolling Stone magazine was launched in San Francisco, and it was Jann's magazine that put the current music scene into the limelight. The magazine was started, as Ahmet said, with Jann Wenner, who was there at the beginning, and she's here tonight. The magazine quickly expanded its range into politics, which was the real hot potato of the time, and into movies, kidnapping, I remember that issue, and drugs. Strange to say, you know, this was all new stuff to American music journalism. People took jazz at that time very seriously, sometimes too seriously. But rock performers were treated as third-class, fly-by-night citizens, having a hard time to form one brain between them. Rolling Stone changed all that by revealing that indeed two brains existed. And they did that by inventing the very long interview. When Collie Denal from 16 magazine would do 5 minutes on your hair and wardrobe, now you had to spend hours describing your views on everything from Vietnam to the Beatles, as well as, of course, your sexual preferences. Now, intrepid Rolling Stone performers would hang out with you on tour, having to be supplied with drink, drugs, and even food to produce the interviews that Jann demanded. And the books, sometimes, the writers, with their vision, saw as their contribution to the counterculture. I must tell you that one time, a few years ago, not so long ago, that Jann decided he was going to do a very long interview with me. And he decided that he was going to come visit us on tour to do this, to small places where there wouldn't be any interference. And after a couple of interviews, he said, you know, I'm really getting into this. It's like, I feel like a cub reporter again. I said, yeah, Jann, you know, you're a cub reporter with a Gulfstream G4 waiting at the airport. But anyway, but all this caught on, and Jann was always there driving it with his mix of enthusiasm for the grand design and all the details. The magazine then came to define rock journalism, as well as promoting social and political causes. Jann had then a second great idea, which also defined the magazine, which was to have covers with rock icons portrayed by some brilliant photographers, some of which that Ahmet mentioned, such as Annie Leibovitz, Dick Avedon, Herb Ritz, and Mark Seliger, to name some of them, and also some great illustrators, Mike Judge, Matt Groening, and Ralph Steadman. Jann had a third idea, which was also to put very young girls with very little on the cover of the magazine. All these things helped to make Rolling Stone the cover that artists and the publicists would die for. The thing about Jann is that he is a great editor, always going to the heart of the story, and he remains young in being interested in the now as much as the then. He has a passion for music, politics, and movies, and remains himself in the forefront of the sexual revolution. I think that among Jann's groundbreaking ideas, to me, one of the things that Ahmet mentioned that stands out, that he was one of the first music critics and editors that really understood how we as artists felt, and that he could sympathize with our yearnings. And it was this understanding that placed the magazine in the forefront of rock criticism. It was this that Jann almost single-handedly pioneered the idea of popular music, and rock and roll in particular, as a vibrant art form, not just a collection of flash-in-the-pan mediocrities. It was Jann and his staff who elevated our music to a place where it enjoys the status of other musical forms. Even now, Rolling Stone remains a beacon of light in a magazine stand full of such trivia as The Star, The National Enquirer, and Us magazine. To have kept the magazine up to its incredibly high standard for 36 years without even batting an eyelash is no mean feat, and Jann Wenner has made an invaluable contribution to the appreciation of our music. This is a wonderful, heartfelt occasion, and I will treasure it the memory of it all the way to the airport. It gives me great pleasure to induct Jann Wenner into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.